Hello out there. This is part 4 of creating valid verbal names for our data frame from a spreadsheet. To recap, we're using the labour force data set. Here it is here. And what we're doing is taking the verbal name descriptors, like employed total persons, and converting that to a valid verbal name that's no longer than 32 characters. So where we got up to was shortening the verbal names. And so if I run this again, we see now that we have taken the first 2 characters of each of those verbal name descriptors. So if we go back to the spreadsheet, we can see employed total persons. So we've taken EM, TO, and PE. So now we're going to put that together. But first, just to go over some and clarify terminology, where you see a dot there, like ds.apply, that's using a method. So we're using the apply method for the data frame from Pandas. Also, this statement here is known as a list comprehension in Python. So basically, you've got your for loop in the one line, essentially, which is quite neat. So the next step is to put our shortened verbal name characters together to form our valid verbal name. And so what we need to do is take, for example, employed total persons, thousands, trend, stock. We need to put the EM, TO, PE together without any spaces so that we still can stay within the 32 character limit. And so to do that, first off we need to define a new list. So I'll go to my pre-written code and copy that. And paste that in. But before we proceed any further, I'll notice I've done something really silly. The name for that's going to be the same as the original list, which is, we calculated this at line 30 here, and that doesn't change, it's the same. So we want, because it's going to be the same as the original list once we put it back together again, because remember this is a list of lists which is a lot bigger than the original list. So so we should be using, we don't need to calculate it a second time, which we have done in line 44 here. We've calculated there again, and it doesn't need to be. So I'll fix that up. So all we need to do now is replace length split with length label list. And I can get rid of this statement here because it's not needed. And just remember to replace it in here where we use it in the for loop. Okay, that should now still work. I'll check that. Clear my kernel by restarting. And it still works perfectly. So the next step is we need another for loop which will then put together this list of shortened characters. So I go to my pre-written code and I'll grab that for loop. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're looping through this list of list. So from 0 to, again, we'll change that to length label list because we don't need to recalculate again because it's going to be the same. So so what we're saying is within each these this list within a list, this first list will be this. We have the same number as the original list, and so it's going to vary as to the number of elements we have within the list. So we need to calculate the length of that. And we'll just go through each element, and we concatenate the characters together by this statement here. So total words J plus minus equals a string, because it will because you're doing a plus equal operation, you want to make sure that this should be treated strictly as a string, otherwise you'll have an error. The other point with why we need to create empty lists the same size as the original list is so that we don't have any out of range errors in the for loops. So what I'm saying is these empty lists need to be the same size as the original list. Okay, so we got that. We'll do a print statement for the new total words list. And hopefully that will work, and it should be the same as in size as the original, but we'll have the shortened characters concatenated together. So let's run that. And here we are. Great, look at that. So employed total persons is here. So EMTOPE thousands TRST. So it's employed total persons in thousands trend stock. So it's great. So these are valid verbal names that we can use in our data frames, in SAS, and also make it a lot easier when doing analysis in Python. So the next thing we need to do is check that the valid variable name does not exceed 32 characters. So I'll just grab some pre-written code for that. So what we have is a for loop that goes through the list of valid variable names that we've created in total words, and we got this if statement. If the length of total words exceeds 32, then we print the length of variable exceeds 32 characters. So we'll run that and see what we get. Hopefully we get a blank, and we do. So there are no valid variable names here that we've created that exceed 32 characters. That's great. So the next step is to check for duplicates, because having duplicate column names is a bad thing. In fact, in Pandas, if you have duplicates in your data frame, it will cause Spider to crash horribly. So much so that you have to actually restart Spider. So I'll go to my pre-written code. I'll paste that in. Okay, so what we're doing here is we first need to sort the total words. So that's that list of valid variable names we have here. And then we need to do a pairwise comparison of each pair. And if there's a match, then we know we have a duplicate, and we'll then put it into this duplicate verbal names list. So first we need to create an empty list that we're going to populate. And we need a less _1 variable, because when you do the pairwise comparison, you have +1 for the last one, and if you have +1 for the last one, which is in this case it's 115 in length, it will be 116, and that will be out of range, and then you'll get an error. So we've got this for loop. We're looping through each of these valid variable names. Then we got this if statement, and we are checking whether there's a match between this variable name here and this one. So we're doing our pairwise comparison, and if there is a duplicate, then we're going to append it to our duplicate variable names list. And then we do a print statement to see if it's been populated. If it has, then that's bad news. We have to do something about fixing that. So I'll just run that. And the good news is there's no duplicates. So the next step is to actually put together our final data frame. So I'll go to my pre-written code. Paste that in. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're grabbing our original data set we created in the read_it_cell method. So that was called lab_force. And then we start at the row that the actual data starts. So if we go to the spreadsheet, it's row 11 on the spreadsheet, but it's row 10 in Python. So it starts from here and puts all that data into the new data frame. So we go back to Spider. The next thing we do is use the columns method in Pandas. And what we're saying is we define the columns to be these total words. So it's these valid variable names that we created will become the final columns in our data frame. And then we can print, or we don't have to print total words, so I'll remove that because we've already done that already. And we need to return that so that we'll have it available. The other thing we need to do is we're calling this function, but we need to define what our final labour force data set is going to be called. So we'll call it labour force data set. That will do. Okay, so we've done that. Now we can run that and it should work. And it does, and there it is. So if we double click on that, we see we have our data frame. And it starts at row 10, that's the index value there for it. And it's where all our data is in there. So we've got our employed total persons in thousands for trend stock. And we got the date, time, and so the time is 0000. So to worry about that, we just date is the most important thing. It tells us the figures for each month, basically. So month February in 1978, and March in 1978, and so on. And that is it. So if you like this video, please subscribe and give us the thumbs up. Thank you.